everything that we know and have learned about mankind and its place in the universe suggests that we are a part of the norm. We are not the exception. Within the last month, a planet was identified that has water a mere 110 light years away from Earth. We need to begin to prepare to accept and understand that we are not alone in the universe, have not been at all throughout this time.
The same year that life-giving water was discovered on a distant planet, the U.S. Navy made a startling announcement. Images captured by its pilots of objects exhibiting a vastly superior technology were authentic.
We can start to finally, at long last, after all these decades, begin to answer these questions about the origin of these vehicles, where they're from, how they're made, how they function, and why they're here.
People need to know there is something else out there.
To fully understand, we must examine a body of evidence long suppressed, a parallel history to the one we think we know, stretching back at least 70 years. On a clear, sunny day in 1955, William Coleman, a decorated World War II pilot, took off from Miami on a routine flight to deliver a B-25 bomber to an airbase in Mississippi.
My co-pilot said, "Look at that bright spot up there. I think it's just a reflection of the sun. It crazed probably in the windshield."
He and his passengers, two aviation engineers, realized it was a strange object, making a rapid descent right across their flight path.
My God, look at that thing. I opened it up to max continuous power. Here we're clipping right along at over 300 miles an hour, right on the treetops. So I'm right on the tail of this thing. As we got closer, I said, it doesn't have a tail, doesn't have any wings. Look at the shadow on the ground. The shadow is perfectly round. That's not an airplane. And I said, I'm overtaking it. So I said, hang on. So I'm gonna make a hard turn. There it was, a disc. Going across the field with two big swirls. What I didn't see was any exhaust, propulsion. No rivet lines, a rounded edge about that size, where it all came together. A true flying saucer.
Then it seemed to vanish, until they spotted it thousands of feet above them.
Bright, yellow, sunish looking object. Going like a bat out of hell.
After they landed, the stunned witnesses were separately debriefed by Project Blue Book, the Air Force investigation of the UFO phenomenon. Ironically, a little over a decade later, Colonel William T. Coleman became public spokesman for Project Blue Book.
Probably what we saw may have been from somewhere else. Look, the Air Force is a very deadly being when it comes to intercepting an unknown. If it proves hostile, we're going to shoot it down. Other than that, no problem.
In the late 1940s, America seemed impregnable to military threat. It had just emerged from World War II, masters of the air, the only nuclear-armed superpower in the world. But in 1947, something appeared in the sky, and everything changed.
Every newscaster and every newspaper across the nation has made headlines out of it, and this afternoon we are honored indeed to have here in our studio this man, Kenneth Arnold, who we believe may be able to give us a first-hand account and give you the same on what happened.
I kept looking for their tails. They didn't have any tails. I thought, well, maybe I had something wrong in my eyes. They seemed to flip and flash in the sun just like a mirror. I'd be glad to confirm it with my hands on a Bible because I did see it. And whether it has anything to do with our army or our intelligence or whether it has to do with some foreign country, I don't know.
Arnold had sent this sketch to the Air Force following his sighting. He was later invited to California's Hamilton Field Army Air Base, where he was handed what he was told were authentic photos of a similar craft.
At the request of Lieutenant Colonel Donald Springer, commanding officer of the 4th Air Force Intelligence, and was given the above prints as a courtesy for the assistance he had given military intelligence.
The photo was taken in Arizona, just 2 weeks after his own encounter.
They said that my father's sighting of flying saucers got more attention than the ending of World War II. He was besieged by newspaper reporters from all over the world.
Reporters interviewed United Airlines pilot E.J. Smith, who also flew the Northwest route. He joked Arnold had likely been fooled by a cockpit reflection, until he too became a witness a few weeks later. He and his stunned crew had watched as 9 discs maneuvered in formation for a full 45 minutes.
And from there it just exploded. The first few days in July of 1947 had a very large level of sighting activity.
These unknown objects barnstormed across the country, sometimes in fleet-like formations that looked like a deliberate show of force.
Hundreds of people told Air Force investigators they'd seen the saucers with their own eyes. Bright, shiny things that whished through the air at incredible speeds. Even airline pilots who seldom indulged in fantasy reported sighting them. And Air Force flyers told of chasing them, or something, all over the sky. The Air Force called them unidentified flying objects, but people went around calling them saucers, and seeing them. There was something in the air.
Well, the Air Force has the best brains in the country working on it. General Link Twining, the Air Force Chief of Staff, says that if there are saucers from Mars or Jupiter or some far planet, and that there is a people and a world that far ahead of us, he doesn't believe we even have to worry about it.
But a then secret memorandum by the same general suggested that the highest military echelons thought there was plenty to worry about. The memo states, quote, "The phenomenon reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious." It described metallic discs, circular in shape, with domes on top, often traveling in formations of 3 to 9 craft. It also listed aerodynamic capabilities with disturbing implications for national defense, extreme rates of climb, dazzling maneuverability, and a superior capacity for evasive action.
A lot of people expected that the United States government was about to confirm, okay, they're ours. This is an exciting new technological advance that we were testing, and now it's time to tell people about it.
Occasionally, eyewitness testimony included compelling photographic evidence. Evelyn Trent was feeding her rabbits when she spotted a metallic disc-shaped object floating over their farm. She alerted her husband Paul to grab his camera, and he managed to get 2 shots. described the object slowly hovering before it abruptly sped away. Life magazine picked up the story, and the McMinnville UFO became a global sensation.
There's no chance of this being weather. There's no chance of this being a star or an aircraft. This is either some kind of structured object that we don't know what it is, or it's a hoax. Paul Trent and his wife, they were honest, simple, hardworking people who never made a dime off the photographs that they took. They never tried to make a dime off of it.
It just come up like that and tipped and just, I mean, really went. It went fast. I've never seen anything go so fast in my life as that thing went. Yeah.
In 1951, future astronaut Gordon Cooper, while training in Germany, chased a large formation with his squadron of fighter jets.
Unlike fighters, they would stop, almost stop in their forward velocity and change 9 degrees, sometimes in their flight path. And within the next 2 to 3 days, we'd had practically all the fighters we could muster on the base up climbing as high as they would climb, with guys with binoculars in them still trying to spot these strange devices flying overhead. And we never could get close enough really to pin them down, but they were round in shape and very metallic looking. And they would come over and do the same maneuvers that we make, except every once in a while one of them goes, zip. And you just can't do that in a fighter.
Two saucers, one inverted over the other. They seemed to be made of some kind of polished metal. When I first saw the objects, they were almost overhead. By the time I had the camera ready to go, they had moved to a considerably greater distance.
But the unknowns showed no signs of hostility, an otherworldly power on its own mysterious mission. Commercial pilots William Nash and William Fortenberry, former Navy aviators with thousands of hours of flight experience, saw 8 huge discs fly in a stack formation over Chesapeake Bay, Virginia, just a stone's throw from Washington, D.C.
When they came out over the blackness of the bay, they're distinct 6 red points. And when they got closer, we could see that it looked like you were looking down into it, like a hot coal.
They reported the glowing red objects had approached them head-on at a speed they estimated at 6,000 to 12,000 miles per hour.
They came in like this and went out like this. There would be no way of making complete reversal or a 90-degree turn 12,000 miles an hour or greater without making the occupants juice on the wall. They kind of really shook us up. Looking at the thing shook us up. Nothing could have gotten to that degree of scientific progress without some of the intermediate steps having become public knowledge. We just knew that they were not from this planet.
The next weekend, the unthinkable happened. The nation's capital was invaded from the skies. 7 unknown blips suddenly appeared on radar at Washington National Airport. Air traffic controllers at both Andrews and Bolling Air Force bases confirmed the objects as they danced through restricted airspace.
Capitol building, the White House where the president lived, these were some of the most important places in the country when it comes to national defense. And there were UFOs violating this airspace, and there was nothing that the Air Force could do about it.
F-94 interceptors were scrambled. Pentagon press liaison Al Chop was in the radar room that night.
We could see the planes coming in on this radar scope. The minute we saw the beginning of these guys, UFOs disappeared. They just left. They obviously, whatever these things were, had intelligence enough to get out of the area when they had an intercept going in.
But the next weekend, it began again. Pilot William Patterson pushed his Starfire jet to maximum speed to try to intercept one of the glowing objects.
Flew right into the middle of 3 or 4 of them.
Al Chop recalls the pilot's panicky air-to-ground transmission as he streaked at 600 miles per hour into a group of unknowns.
He actually said they're closing in on me. What shall I do? It was frightening.
The Air Force had just issued orders to shoot down the unknowns if, quote, they can't talk them down.
I was trying to tell an Air Force pilot to fire at the damn thing or anything, but I didn't say anything. Nobody said anything. And then all of a sudden, things began to move away from him. And he said, they're gone. I'm convinced they're solid objects. I'm convinced that they're probably from another planet or from outer space somewhere. I've always felt that way since that time.